Church of Jesus Christ is supposed to be a hospital where spiritually sick people can find healing.
But Dr. Tony Evans says some churches just try to make people feel that being sick isn't so bad.
In order to make people all happy, in order to increase membership, in order to get more money, we tolerate the intolerable.
This is The Alternative with Dr. Tony Evans, author, speaker, senior pastor of Oak Cliff Bible Fellowship in Dallas, Texas, and president of the Urban Alternative. Sometimes the church's efforts to bring more people in can wind up pushing God's Word out. Let's join Dr. Evans as he takes us to Revelation chapter 2 for a look at the danger of dumbing down God's standards.
When you go through an airport and you go through the magnetometers, the x-ray machines, they're looking for things that should not go on the plane. And so if you have a liquid with a certain amount of content, they will take it from you. They will hold it back and say, you can't carry that on. If you've got a knife, they're going to tell you, no, you can't take that on. If you've got a firearm, obviously you can't take that on. What they're going to do is stop you because they're going to let you know there's certain things that the plane will not tolerate. There's certain things that it will not accept. And if you try to pass those things through, they're going to reject you because there are limits on what they will allow you to carry on the airplane. Now, I'm sure you have seen, and maybe you have been a part of, arguing with TSA agents of why you should have the ability to bring on the plane something that they say you can't bring it on the plane. I am so sorry, but you can't do it. They create a boundary. I am certain in your life there are expectations that are non-adjustable, that you simply say that's a boundary and I can't accept that. I'm certain, parents, you have children who bring home worldviews, thoughts, perspectives, arguments, and you argue back, that's not acceptable here, even though it may be popular with your friends or with your schoolmates, because you are giving them a boundary of toleration. Certain things you will not tolerate. Well, today in Revelation chapter 2, the Lord is going to talk about the intolerance of an overcomer. If you are going to be an overcomer and not an undercomer, if you're going to be a winner and not a loser, if you're going to be victorious and not live in defeat, you must have your toleration limits. There are certain things you will not tolerate. You won't accept. It's outside of the boundary. He writes to the church at Thyra Tyra. He says, beginning in Revelation chapter 2, verse 18, to the angel, that is the messenger, that is the pastor of the church at Thyra Tyra, write. The Son of God, who has eyes like flame of fire and his feet are like brandished bronze, says this. So he introduces this designation to the church at Thyra Tyra. So let me tell you about Thyra Tyra. It's 35 miles southwest of Pergamus in Asia, and it was a place known for its guilds or unions. Some of you perhaps belong to a union, a teachers union, or a steelworkers union, or some other kind of official gathering related to people who share the same occupation. Those unions are designed to bring certain benefits, protections, and guarantees to those who participate in that particular enterprise. So Thyra Tyra was known for its guilds, they called them then, or unions. In the midst of these unions and this city called Thyra Tyra, a church was established. The beginning of that church is summarized for us in Acts chapter 16, verse 14, when Paul the apostle comes across a woman named Lydia, and Lydia was a seller of purple, it says, purple dye. Thyra Tyra made purple dye, and these dyes was part of couture clothing for the uptown shoppers. And so she was a manufacturer of it. She was a distributor of it. She was a wholesaler of it. And Paul came and led Lydia to Christ in Acts chapter 16, verse 14. Out of that grew a church, Thyra Tyra Bible Fellowship, out of the salvation of Lydia. And so a church begins to grow in the midst of this secular city called Thyra Tyra. Well, Thyra Tyra is known for its guilds and its unions, but let me tell you about a couple of aspects of the unions, because that will help you to understand what Jesus is getting ready to say to the church. Not only were the unions connecting people who had the same occupation for protection and for privileges and for rights, but each union had its own God. So the unions had a spiritual or religious aspect to them. So if you were part of Thyra Tyra's teachers union, then you were expected to give recognition to the teachers union God, or whatever God was tied to that union. So that was one part of it. So Thyra Tyra was a workers' union and had a religious aspect. But it not only had a religious aspect, the unions in Thyra Tyra also had a social aspect, like a fraternity or a sorority. So there was a social aspect to the unions. So there was a working aspect tied to a religious aspect, tied to a social aspect. So you got together with the people that you worked with and you partied with them and you enjoyed good time with them because you shared the same occupation. Well, the problem occurred when people became Christians and belonged to the union, and they were expected to recognize the union's God and to party with the other co-workers, that it involved things that went against the Christian faith. And that created a crisis for the Christians in these secular occupations. I am sure many of you can understand the crisis because many, if not most of you, have been in the crisis. Where working in a secular occupation, you have been expected, challenged, and sometimes even demanded to compromise spiritual values in order to keep your job or to get a raise on your job. You had to go along to get along. So that is the scenario of Thyra Tyra, and that is the dilemma that the Christians are facing who are working in one of these unions in the city. They're caught in the conflict of needing a job, working a job, but having to compromise their faith or compromise their morals in order to be accepted in the job. And that is the scenario. Verse 18 says, "The Son of God, the one with eyes of fire and feet of burnished bronze, says this." Jesus Christ has already been introduced as the Son of Man, but on this occasion in verse 18 to the church at Thyra Tyra, he's not introduced as the Son of Man, he's introduced as the Son of God. And of course, Jesus is both, the virgin birth. Mary's egg was fertilized by the Holy Spirit, so you had undiminished deity poured into sinless humanity, so that Jesus Christ is called both the Son of Man and the Son of God. As the Son of Man, he can relate to your humanity. As the Son of God, he can relate to God's deity. So he has one hand in heaven and another hand on earth. One foot in glory and another foot in history, because he's both the Son of God and the Son of Man. As the Son of Man, he can feel you. As the Son of God, he can handle you, because he is both the Son of God and the Son of Man. He is now introduced to us as the Son of God. As the Son of God, deity, he says he has eyes of fire, which means he can penetrate what's going on. See, when you walk through those metal detectors at the airport, I don't care how much you cover stuff up. I don't care how deep you put it in your suitcase. The penetrating eyes of the x-ray machine is going to go beneath what is evident and what is obvious to what is beneath and what is hidden. And Jesus's eyes of fire penetrates the facade. He knows when you're really Christian, and he knows when you're faking it to make it, because his eyes of fire penetrate to the reality of a thing. He not only has eyes of fire, it says in verse 18, it says he has feet of burnished bronze. Well, what do you do with feet? You walk. So he's got eyes to see it and feet to get to it. So not only does he know what's going on, he can get a hold of what's going on, and his feet are so strong, burnished bronze, that when he decides to move, everybody got to get out of the way. So Jesus Christ now presents himself to this church as the all-seeing authoritative one to these Christians who are caught in these unions that are being demanded that they tolerate certain beliefs and practices that compromise their Christian faith. So that's the dilemma.
That's the same kind of dilemma many of us face today. And Dr. Evans will come back in a moment with more advice about how to deal with it. First, though, today's lesson is part of Tony's brand new series, The Jesus Challenge, and I want to tell you about the resources we put together to help you follow up on what we're learning. It starts with all 8 full-length CDs in this collection to study in depth. Along with them, we'll include 2 special bonuses, the Jesus Challenge Bible Study Guide and a DVD introduction by Tony for each of the sessions in it. We'll send you this entire package with our thanks for any contribution God leads you to make to help us keep Tony's teaching on this station. But this special offer is only available till Friday, so don't wait. Visit tonyevans.org today to make the arrangements, or call us at 1-800-800-3222, where members of our resource team are available day and night to help you. That's 1-800-800-3222. Right now, let's get back to today's message. Here's Dr. Evans.
He compliments them in verse 19, where he says to them, I know your deeds, your love, your faith, your service, your perseverance, and that your deeds of late are greater than your deeds at first. So you are doing better. You are growing. You are a congregation that I see wants to do the right thing. And so I want to commend you for that. But after commending them, he now criticizes them. He says in verse 20, but I have this against you. Do you have your seatbelt on? I got one problem, but it's a doozy. He says, I have this against you, even though you got all this good stuff, that you tolerate. Well, there's our message, the intoleration of an overcomer, that you tolerate the woman Jezebel, who calls herself a prophetess, and she teaches and leads my bondservants astray so that they commit acts of immorality and eat things sacrificed to idols. What's Jesus' problem with this church? His problem is what they tolerate. Well, he says, you tolerate the woman Jezebel. The problem was toleration. Watch this now. Jesus, the Son of God, says, I've got a problem with you, Thyra Tyra Bible Fellowship. Not only are you doing good things, but you are tolerating other folk doing bad things. Stay with me here. Even if you're not doing it, you're tolerating it. Even if you're not participating, you are accepting of it. What you're doing is saying, well, it's not God's standard, but that's not my business. Your business is your business. My business is my business. And who am I to judge? So you had this prophetess, self-proclaimed, because she called herself a prophetess. God never called her one. She's a self-proclaimed prophetess, and she's going around speaking on behalf of God, leading church members astray. Stay with me here because I'm going somewhere. Leading church members astray, but because she's a prophetess, she's got God's name all up in the discussion, because a prophet speaks on behalf of God. So she's saying God said this and God thinks that and God feels this, and she's making it sound all spiritual, wrapped in all Christianese, and she's making it sound like it's holy and like it's coming down from heaven. And in the name of God, prophetess, she's leading people astray. She's becoming a David Koresh or a Jim Jones, using the name of God to lead people away from God. And what the church was doing wrong was tolerating it, accepting it, not saying anything about it, allowing it to spread. As long as I'm not doing it, and as long as I'm not caught up in it, I ain't gonna say nothing about it. That's not my business. Well, Jesus says, well, it's my business. If you come to my house and you got Jack Daniels in your back pocket, you got to leave Jack outside. Because in my house, we don't tolerate Jack Daniels. Just my house. It's just the way it is. If you and your girlfriend come to my house and y'all used to shacking in your house, in my house, you're going to be in 2 separate rooms. I don't care how long you've been shacking. I don't care how much you love each other. All that's irrelevant. In my house, if you get to stay tonight, you're going to be in 2 separate rooms. You don't get to knock boots in my house if you're not married. You just, that's not. In fact, if you smoke, we don't have ashtrays. I'm not trying to be mean. It's just in my house, we don't allow smoking. Now, why not? Because it's my house. So in my house, there's certain things I accept, certain things I don't accept. And that just because it's my house. Guess what? This is God's house. And in his house, there's certain things he accepts and certain things he doesn't accept. And neither does he want the other family members to accept it. He says you tolerate it, you accept it. And he says it is unacceptable. Now, it involved 2 things. It involved worshiping a false god. He says idolatry. The unions worship the idols. He says, well, the unions may worship the idols, but I'm the only true God. You don't get to worship the idols just because everybody else is doing it. Then there was a lifestyle issue. He says your morals are askew. Just because everybody else in the fraternity and sorority are acting crazy, are drugging it up, are sleeping around, and are doing this and doing that, just because they're doing that as part of the union, and that's the way they roll. Well, no, the Son of God says that in my house, based on my standard, that's not how you roll. Not only is it not how you roll, you don't even agree with it. In other words, they should know your stand. You shouldn't be such a hidden Christian that they don't think it matters to you because you are clear on where you stand. What he's saying is that this church tolerated Jezebel. So let me tell you about Jezzy. We find Jezebel in 1 Kings chapter 16 and verse 17. Jezebel was married to Ahab, the king of Israel. Jezebel was the daughter of a king, and she was a worshiper of the god Baal. Baal was the fertility god and the god of the pagans. She talked her husband into worshiping Baal. So we got a strong-willed woman who's married to the king, who comes to the king and says, well, if you're going to be married to me, you got to go with my God. So he compromised with her. And when he compromised with her, he's the king. He's leading all of Israel into compromising with her. Sister girl, Jezzy, had such powerful influence that she even threatened the prophet of God, Elijah, and told him, because she had 850 false prophets, said, look, you keep doing what you're doing, and I'm going to kill you. I'm going to kill you. You will not live another day. Because I'm running this roost. I know my husband got the title, but I got the power. Some of you men know what that feels like. You got the title, but she got the power. And so She lets it be known that we are going to worship Baal. And she got Israel to compromise. That's why Elijah asked them, how long will you halt between two opinions? How long you going to go both ways? How long you going to be one way in church and another way at work? How long you going to be one way with the family of God and another way in your sorority or fraternity? How long you going to be one way with your spiritual family and a whole nother way with your biological family? How long you going to go both ways? Because he wants you to know, as long as you go both ways, you'll never be an overcomer. Because you are not operating on his standard. He says you tolerate it. You accept it, even if you're not doing it. You are allowing it, and it's going unaddressed. It is shameful today what churches are beginning to allow. It is shameful today, because this woman is in the church. She's a power broker in the congregation. It is shameful today how churches are dumbing down God's standard because they don't want to offend. They don't want anybody to call them intolerant. Because you know that's the new word today. You Christians are so intolerant. Well, yeah. Because there's certain things that the Son of God says we're not to tolerate. But in order to be popular, in order to get people, make people feel comfortable, in order to make people all happy, in order to increase membership, in order to get more money, we tolerate the intolerable. God says it is unacceptable. What is unacceptable to God must be unacceptable to God's people. We live in a day when even God's people are dumbing down God's standard. Now, none of us is perfect. But when you're sick and you can't tolerate the pain anymore, when you go to the doctor, let's say it's an emergency, you go to the emergency room. You know why? Because the pain has become intolerable. You don't want the pain anymore. So you go to the emergency room. The emergency room doctors take you in because that's what hospitals do. They take you in because they want to help you with the pain. They want to deal with that which you consider intolerable. Well, let's say you have to go into surgery. If you go into surgery, guess what's also intolerable? Them having germs in the room. They're not going to take the position, well, we only have a few germs in here, so don't worry about it. Because when they cut you open, it's only a few germs that can give you infection. So you're in a sterilized room with sterilized equipment because germs are intolerable. And you want the doctor to hold the position that germs are intolerable because it has to do with your health and your well-being. So you go there because your pain is intolerable. You want them to be intolerable so that they can heal you, because the whole job of the hospital is to make you better, not merely help you tolerate what's wrong. Well, the Church of Jesus Christ is supposed to be a hospital where spiritually sick people can find healing. We're not supposed to be a hospice. A hospice is where you make people comfortable while they die. Okay? That's what you do with a hospice.
Dr. Evans will have more for us on this subject tomorrow. In the meantime, if you'd like to get the complete full-length version of this message, check with us for details on the lesson titled, A Challenge to Higher Standards. Better yet, get it as a part of Tony's series, The Jesus Challenge. As I mentioned earlier, we're offering all 8 messages in this brand new CD collection, along with the personal or group study guide and DVD that go with it, as our thank you gift when you support Tony's ministry with a contribution of any amount. So contact us at tonyevans.org to get the details and make the arrangements before this offer runs out on Friday. Or call our 24-hour resource center at 1-800-800-3222 and let one of our team members help you. Again, 1-800-800-3222. Tomorrow, more practical biblical advice from Dr. Evans on how to show caring without compromising God's standards. I hope you'll be with us. The Alternative with Dr. Tony Evans is brought to you by the Urban Alternative and is made possible by the generous contributions of listeners like you.